Hi, I'm Jim Self, and welcome to my garage. Today we're going to do a step-by-step guide to changing your outboard's lower unit oil. The same steps also apply to many Sterndrives. It's a 10-step process that will make sure that you do it properly and your lower unit is properly maintained. Tools and supplies you're going to need to do this task. First is a flathead screwdriver and possibly an Allen wrench for many of the Johnson and Emerald or BRP applications. A suitable drain pan that's going to have enough capacity to hold all the oil from your gear case without overflowing. New gaskets for the drain plugs. This is an item that's often overlooked and reused. A very big mistake that's going to lead to big problems down the road, and they're very inexpensive. Appropriate amount of gear lube. Today I'm going to use the Bel-Ray Marine Mineral Gear Oil. Proper gear lube pump to fit the bottle. I highly recommend this combination over the old squeeze tubes. It's far less messy, less wasteful, and does a much better job of filling your gear case. I highly recommend this is a good time to pull off the prop. Lubricate the prop shaft, splines, and other fittings. And for that, again, I recommend Bel-Ray's Marine Extreme Pressure Waterproof Grease. First step for changing your gear lube is to make sure that it's in a straight vertical position here. Position your drain pan underneath the gear case here to make sure it's going to catch the gear lube as it drains. Then locate your vent plug, which is the top one here, and your drain plug here on the bottom. Step number 2 is going to be to loosen the lower drain plug and go ahead and back it all the way out. As you get that out, you're going to see gear lube start to trickle down the skeg. Your next step is to remove the vent plug, and this is going to allow the oil to flow much freer. While this is draining, I'd like to also show you a few things to be looking for. Many lower drain plugs and outboards contain a magnet on the end. This is designed to pull all the metal contaminants out of your gear case and onto this plug to keep it from doing damage to the gears and bearings inside the unit. If you see a lot of metal contaminants like you do on this particular plug, you may have signs that there's other damage inside the gear case. It's not unusual to see some metal filings on there or a dark gray powdery substance. That's normal wear and tear. You just wipe it off clean and reinstall it with a new gasket. Also, another common problem when you're changing gear lube is water contamination in the gear case. It's not uncommon to see seals that have worn, gaskets that are bad, and it allows water to enter into the gear case and contaminate the gear lube. Typically, if you have water in your gear case, it's going to come out first because it's heavier than oil, so it settles to the bottom of the gear case, and it's the very first thing that comes out. If you see any substantial water in there, it's a sign that you need to have your gear case resealed to prevent from having a complete failure. The Bel-Ray lubricant, however, is really good for these older drives because it can have as much as 25% water contamination without having any impact on the performance. So it will help prevent some damage in case you have a seal that develops a leak over the period of time you're using the engine. While the gear case is draining, we're going to go ahead and prepare for refilling the gear case. So with the Bel-Ray lubricant, first thing we do is pull out the spout here, take off the cap, remove the seal inside the cap, and then we install the pump into the bottle here, which screws right onto the spout. And now we're ready to go. Okay, now the lower unit here is completely drained. Before we proceed here, the first thing we want to do is just double check these holes and make sure that the gasket didn't get stuck in there. One thing you don't want to do is double up on the gaskets here. So the old gaskets have been removed. We're going to go ahead and install the new gaskets on our drain and vent plugs here to get ready. Now we're going to go ahead and fill the gear case. So you got to fill this from the bottom up to purge the air out as you fill it. So you go ahead and screw this in, the pump into the bottom hole here. The nice thing I like about the Bel-Ray pump is it has a metal fitting on it versus some of the cheaper ones that are plastic. They can tend to cross thread and they don't hold up very well. Plus, I've actually seen people snap those off. You get that plastic fitting stuck in there and then you get a real problem. The key is not to fill it too fast. You do want to go relatively slow. Make sure you purge all the air out of the system here. You just keep pumping until you start to see gear lube come out of that top hole. And it can take a little bit of time. Now I have gear lube coming out here. You want to make sure there's no air bubbles in it. Reinstalling the top plug first creates a vacuum in there, prevents the loss of much gear lube here while you reinstall the bottom plug. Before we pull that away, we'll have the plug ready. Tighten down securely. And wipe off the excess. While you're doing this, it's also a good opportunity to go ahead and remove the prop, and grease the prop shaft splines, and grease some of the fittings on the engine. This particular unit has a cotter pin through the prop nut. Some of the Mercury outboards have a tab washer that you have to bend. So you just pull out the cotter pin, loosen the prop, slide the prop off. So we're going to apply some Bel-Ray waterproof grease directly to the splines here. Fairly liberal. The thing I like about the Bel-Ray grease, this is an aluminum complex based grease, which makes it completely waterproof. Unlike a lot of the lithium based greases out there that are just merely water resistant, this holds up much better in a marine application. Install the cotter pin, bend over the edges. So now we'll go ahead and grease a few of the key points here. So you typically have grease zerks on both the top and the bottom. And there you have it. Service is complete. The motor's ready to go.